Welcome to Conspiracy Files. I'm your host, Zoe Parker, and in today's episode, we venture into one of the most hidden and unsettling corners of the internet, where anonymity reigns, laws dissolve, and conspiracy theories thrive. This is the world of the dark web. Beyond the reach of search engines and government oversight, some believe it harbors secrets that stretch far beyond illegal activity. Could the dark web be more than just a digital underworld? Could it be a gateway into something far more sinister? The internet, as most people know it, the surface web, is only a fraction of what exists online. Beneath it lies the deep web, containing content not indexed by standard search engines. Everything from academic databases to password-protected intranets. But deeper still, hidden behind encryption layers and anonymity protocols, is the dark web. Unlike the surface and deep web, access to the dark web requires specialized software such as Tor, which anonymizes user identities and locations through a decentralized network of relays. Originally developed by the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory in the mid-1990s to protect intelligence communications, Tor was eventually released to the public. Its noble origins in preserving privacy and circumventing censorship soon gave way to unintended consequences. By the early 2000s, forums, marketplaces, and communication channels began appearing in hidden corners of the dark web. These were untraceable zones where illegal goods were traded, whistleblowers communicated in secret, and dissidents avoided authoritarian surveillance. In time, these obscure digital domains became synonymous with shadowy dealings. High-profile busts like Silk Road, an infamous online black market shut down by the FBI in 2013, shined a spotlight on this hidden network. Silk Road offered everything from illicit drugs and weapons to fake IDs and hacking services. Its shutdown sparked not only legal battles, but also philosophical debates over freedom, privacy, and control. But what truly fascinates conspiracy theorists isn't just the criminal activity, it's what might be hidden beyond that. In digital corridors with names like the Abyss, Mariana's Web, and the Closed Shell System, rumors swirl of forbidden technologies, government secrets, lost civilizations, and interdimensional research. These aren't merely chat rooms or file dumps. They are thought to be encrypted vaults, accessible only through multiple layers of codes, keys, and insider knowledge. Whispers claim some of these regions require quantum computing access or DNA-based encryption. Whether real or not, the very idea has generated intense speculation. During global conflicts and times of political unrest, traffic to the dark web often surges. Protesters, journalists, and human rights organizations sometimes rely on these encrypted channels to operate under oppressive regimes. But as usage grows, so do the myths. In conspiracy circles, stories abound of digital snuff films, secret experiments, and forums where elite figures communicate away from prying eyes. These claims rarely come with proof, but they spread quickly, often fueled by screenshots, doctored videos, or anonymous testimonies. The line between fact and fiction blurs in the fog of digital secrecy. Culturally, the rise of the dark web has coincided with increasing distrust in institutions. As governments expand surveillance capabilities and corporations harvest personal data, the allure of a space that promises absolute anonymity becomes undeniable. But anonymity also shields exploitation. For every whistleblower using the dark web for protection, there may be traffickers, hackers, or blackmailers exploiting it for gain. This duality, freedom versus danger, is what makes the dark web fertile ground for conspiracy theories. In a world where much is hidden and even more is unknown, the dark web becomes not just a digital space, but a symbol of everything lurking beneath the surface of modern society. Among the earliest and most influential figures associated with the dark web was Ross Ulbricht, the man behind the Silk Road. Operating under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, Ulbricht launched the marketplace in 2011, branding it as a bastion of individual freedom and voluntary exchange. Silk Road was more than an online store. It was a libertarian experiment in economic autonomy, detached from government regulation. But it quickly became notorious as a black market for illegal drugs, counterfeit documents, and hacking services. Authorities eventually caught up with Ulbricht, and in 2015 he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The arrest became a milestone in the government's efforts to infiltrate and dismantle criminal networks operating on the dark web. Following Silk Road's takedown, successors like Alphabay, Hansa, and Dream Market rose to fill the vacuum. Alphabay, in particular, became a sprawling marketplace before it was shut down in 2017 in a joint operation involving law enforcement agencies from multiple countries. Its creator, Alexandra Kazis, was arrested in Thailand and later found dead in his jail cell under mysterious circumstances. Though ruled a suicide, the suddenness of his death added fuel to growing suspicions that certain knowledge, once in the hands of these site operators, posed threats to powerful interests. Beyond the black markets, forums like the Hidden Wiki and Intel Exchange became focal points for those seeking information well outside the bounds of mainstream discourse. These forums featured links to controversial topics, everything from instructions for bypassing surveillance to rumored lists of elite criminals operating in global trafficking rings. While some of this content was speculative or outright hoaxes, other threads contained detailed, highly technical discussions on surveillance, encryption, and geopolitical operations. It became clear that the dark web wasn't just a place for criminals. It was also a meeting ground for hackers, dissidents, and theorists seeking the truth behind global events. The names behind these forums were often aliases, with no way to confirm their identities. Yet over time, some individuals became legendary in online circles. Figures like Cicada 3301 gained notoriety for a series of complex cryptographic puzzles that spanned multiple websites, forums, and even real-world clues left on telephone poles across several countries. The puzzles, which began appearing in 2012, were allegedly created to recruit highly intelligent individuals for an unknown purpose. No organization ever claimed responsibility. Theories emerged suggesting ties to intelligence agencies, secret societies, or rogue collectives operating in digital shadows. Another enigmatic figure is the Architect, a user allegedly tied to a forum known as Closed Systems, which reportedly hosted discussions about transdimensional computing, non-human intelligence, and predictive modeling systems used by world governments. There's little to verify the forum's existence. No screenshots, archives, or confirmed member logs exist. Still, stories about it continue to circulate in conspiracy circles, with some claiming the Architect vanished after posting a thread titled "The Simulation Window is Closing." Government agencies have also become characters in the mythology of the dark web. The NSA, CIA, MI6, and FSB are frequently accused, without proof, of running honeypot sites to lure and monitor users, or worse, of using the dark web to distribute disinformation, psychological operations, or even blackmail material. While there is evidence of government surveillance and sting operations, the full extent of agency activity within the encrypted corners of the web remains unknown. This convergence of anonymity, secrecy, and rumor has helped shape a digital underground populated not just by criminals or activists, but by architects of modern myth. The stories of these key figures and organizations have woven themselves into a tapestry of suspicion, speculation, and encrypted whispers that continue to evolve. Central to the intrigue surrounding the dark web are the claims that it serves as a repository for forbidden knowledge, data and materials so controversial, illegal, or otherworldly that they cannot exist openly in any public domain. Among the most persistent rumors are those concerning hidden databases containing government black projects, suppressed scientific research, and classified intelligence leaks. Some believe that beneath layers of encryption lie entire libraries of suppressed patents, zero-point energy blueprints, and documents implicating elite figures in crimes never brought to trial. One of the more widespread claims involves the so-called red rooms. Allegedly, these are live-streamed torture or execution sessions that viewers can access by invitation only and pay to watch with cryptocurrency. Although widely reported in conspiracy circles and horror fiction, there has never been verifiable proof that such rooms exist in the way they are described. Law enforcement agencies and cybersecurity experts have repeatedly called these stories myths fueled by internet folklore. Still, images and videos with questionable origins occasionally surface and are said to originate from these red rooms, keeping the legend alive. Closely tied to these rumors are allegations of human trafficking networks operating with near total anonymity. Some claim there are directories buried in obscure forums that list missing persons, offering them for sale to buyers with digital wallets full of untraceable funds. These allegations are typically paired with theories about elite rings protected by governments, with claims that detailed information on these operations is available for download, if one knows where to look. Despite multiple high-profile busts of trafficking rings, the notion that an impenetrable market for human lives exists beyond reach continues to thrive, often amplified by cryptic posts and anonymous whistleblowers. Other claims point to so-called dead drops, where documents exposing covert operations are posted temporarily on obscure servers before being wiped. These files allegedly include everything from satellite images of structures beneath Antarctica to full logs of extraterrestrial contact programs. One often cited example is a file archive called the Black Vaults, rumored to contain experimental research on remote viewing, consciousness manipulation, and time distortion technology. No confirmed location of these vaults has ever been authenticated, but the name continues to appear in various conspiracy forums and Reddit threads, suggesting a collective belief in their existence even without concrete proof. There are also recurring claims of AI-driven archives, databases said to be controlled by self-learning artificial intelligences that manage access to sensitive information. According to these theories, users must pass complex Turing tests, solve esoteric riddles, or provide biometric data to gain access. These AI systems are believed by some to be remnants of now-defunct military projects or rogue entities that have continued to evolve independently, monitoring human behavior while remaining undetectable by conventional cybersecurity measures. At the core of these narratives is the belief that the dark web is not just a tool for criminal activity, but a vault for truth that powerful interests are desperate to suppress. Files too sensitive for whistleblower platforms like WikiLeaks, datasets scrubbed from public servers, and footage too disturbing for any journalist to publish are said to find refuge in this subterranean network. Whether or not such materials exist, the belief in their presence fuels a deep distrust in official channels of information and sustains the allure of a hidden digital dimension where nothing is off limits and everything is possible. The stories of secret archives, red rooms, and encrypted vaults on the dark web often hinge on so-called leaked screenshots, cryptic URLs, or anonymous testimonies, yet very little of the supporting material holds up under scrutiny. Investigators, journalists, and cybersecurity experts who have tried to trace these claims frequently run into dead ends. Broken links, faked metadata, or content that vanishes as quickly as it appears. When something tangible is found, it's often tied to scams or hoaxes designed to lure curious users into sending cryptocurrency in exchange for access to non-existent files or false promises of dark revelations. Take, for example, the persistent claims of red rooms. Despite hundreds of blogs and videos alleging first-hand accounts or insider leaks, no credible law enforcement agency has ever found definitive evidence of such an operation. In many cases, videos promoted as leaked footage are either staged productions meant to shock or re-edited content from real-world crimes that had already been publicly documented. The mythos continues, not because of confirmation, but because each denial or debunking only adds to the suspicion that something is being hidden. The absence of proof is often interpreted not as a lack of substance, but as proof of an effective cover-up. The idea of suppressed knowledge, such as blueprints for free energy devices or secret government experiments, is equally difficult to verify. Websites on the surface web have long circulated claims of stolen documents. Yet when these documents are mirrored or uploaded to dark web forums, they often reveal themselves to be either fabricated or based on long debunked pseudoscience. In one instance, a document purporting to show U.S. military research into teleportation was traced back to a speculative paper written by a hobbyist physicist with no formal affiliation. It had been modified and passed off as leaked intelligence, circulating for years before being discredited. Cryptographic puzzles, such as those tied to Cicada 3301, add another layer of mystery. Some researchers have successfully solved sections of these puzzles, revealing email accounts, IRC channels, and recruitment portals. But even among those who completed them, there remains disagreement on whether they were created by a government entity, an elite private group, or merely a collaborative art project. No individual or group has claimed responsibility in a verifiable way. In the absence of answers, the community fills in the gaps with assumptions, some pointing toward global recruitment programs for intelligence operations, others believing it to be a consciousness-expanding test by benevolent entities. Even claims involving AI-controlled databases or biometric authentication have largely failed to yield any concrete examples. The technology described often far exceeds what is publicly known or currently feasible, relying on vague terminology and futuristic concepts. Assertions that users must pass an AI gatekeeper or submit a DNA sample through a digital interface stretch the boundaries of technical plausibility. Analysts suggest many of these claims are either fabrications or misinterpretations of experimental technology that's far less advanced than portrayed. What is verifiable, however, is the presence of law enforcement stings, fake markets, and honeypot operations. Agencies like the FBI and Europol have confirmed deploying decoy platforms on the dark web to catch criminals, monitor activity, and trace IP addresses through intentional mistakes or vulnerabilities. These stings often result in arrests and the takedown of major platforms, but also blur the lines between user myth and reality. When a platform suddenly disappears or a user goes silent, it's difficult to know whether it was a scam, a bust, or something more ominous. The deeper the stories go, the more difficult it becomes to separate digital folklore from genuine mystery. What's certain is that the very structure of the dark web, its encryption, its anonymity, its lack of centralized control, creates fertile ground for claims that cannot be easily disproven. And in that ambiguity, conspiracy theories thrive. While many believe the dark web to be a cryptic vault of truths hidden from public view, a large contingent of cybersecurity professionals, investigative journalists, and former law enforcement agents argue that much of what fuels these conspiracy theories is exaggerated or entirely fabricated. From their perspective, the dark web is certainly dangerous, but not for the reasons often speculated. They point to a mixture of criminal opportunism, fear-mongering, and the human tendency to mythologize what is difficult to access and poorly understood. Skeptics argue that the mystique surrounding red rooms, for example, is largely a product of horror fiction and urban legend. Reports from agencies like Europol, Interpol, and the FBI suggest that while horrifying content certainly circulates online, the logistics of live streaming such acts in real time, while accepting cryptocurrency and avoiding global surveillance, are far more complicated than most realize. Any active data stream must route through a chain of proxy servers and relays, and even within the Tor network, vulnerabilities exist. Several cases in which criminals attempted to operate undetected on the dark web eventually ended with arrests because of basic operational errors. Logging in from the same Wi-Fi hotspot twice, reusing an email alias, or failing to scrub metadata from images. Digital forensic experts have emphasized that most conspiracy-laden content, screenshots of supposed classified documents, blurry images of elite gatherings, or code snippets from AI-run systems, can be easily forged. Image analysis, metadata extraction, and reverse search tools have repeatedly shown that these so-called leaks are often constructed using publicly available materials or doctored through rudimentary editing. A single image of an alleged elite trafficking ledger was found to be a repurposed spreadsheet from an online budgeting tool with renamed columns. Critics of dark web conspiracies also note how confirmation bias operates in these environments. Encrypted forums often attract users who are already convinced that secrets are being hidden. Once inside, any vaguely technical post, cryptic comment, or broken link can be interpreted as a sign of deeper truths. This insular nature creates echo chambers, where skepticism is viewed as complicity, and critical thinking is discouraged in favor of sensationalism. It becomes less about uncovering truths and more about reinforcing a narrative that thrives on ambiguity. There's also a psychological aspect to consider. Experts in behavioral psychology point out that humans are wired to seek patterns and attribute intent to complex systems they don't understand. The dark web's anonymity, coupled with its ominous aesthetic, long strings of random characters for URLs, bizarre names like Silk Road, Mariana's Web, or closed systems, and cryptic messages, triggers deep primal fears. This environment is fertile ground for projection, where real concerns about surveillance, power, and societal control become transformed into tales of digital shadow empires. Additionally, much of the media that reports on dark web conspiracies contributes to the problem. YouTube videos with dramatic music and blurred footage, articles that cite anonymous sources without verification, and viral posts that mix fact with fiction all create a feedback loop that perpetuates the mythos. These narratives draw clicks, shares, and engagement, but rarely deliver any meaningful evidence. Investigative journalism into the actual criminal elements of the dark web is often drowned out by more sensational stories. Still, skeptics aren't dismissing the real dangers of the dark web. They acknowledge that cybercrime, illegal arms sales, and human trafficking exist and pose serious threats. But they argue that these issues should be approached through policy, enforcement, and education, not through mythologizing a platform into something it's not. They warn that overemphasis on unverified conspiracies can distract from actual crimes and victims, replacing real-world action with paralyzing paranoia. In their view, the greatest danger of the dark web may not be what's hidden in its depths, but how its mystery is used to stoke fear, spread misinformation, and blur the boundaries between fact and fiction. The narratives surrounding the dark web carry implications that extend far beyond the digital realm. At the heart of these conspiracies lies a broader cultural anxiety, one that reflects deep mistrust in institutions, growing disillusionment with government transparency, and the fear that technological advancement has outpaced ethical oversight. These anxieties aren't isolated. They're woven into the very fabric of modern life, amplified by global surveillance revelations, political instability, and the increasingly blurred line between truth and propaganda. The perception of the dark web as a hidden mirror of society, revealing what lies beneath the polished surface of the mainstream internet, has made it a powerful symbol. For some, it represents rebellion against control, a realm where truth can flourish outside of institutional filters. For others, it embodies chaos, corruption, and the unrestrained ID of humanity. This dual symbolism has led to its adoption as a metaphor across films, novels, and even political rhetoric, reinforcing the idea that the most important truths are the ones hidden from public view. The idea of secret knowledge being sequestered from the masses is hardly new. Throughout history, forbidden texts, esoteric knowledge, and hidden scrolls have featured prominently in religious and political mythology. The dark web, with its layers of encryption and secret forums, is the digital reincarnation of those ancient vaults. Just as the Vatican archives, the Library of Alexandria, or Masonic lodges have been the subject of centuries of speculation, the encrypted corners of the internet have become the new temples of forbidden knowledge, accessible only to those clever or brave enough to enter. This perception is further reinforced by the role of whistleblowers and leaks. Figures like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange have demonstrated that massive amounts of sensitive information can be hidden in plain sight, and that governments and corporations are capable of systemic deception. These real-world examples have primed the public to believe that more, perhaps much more, remains concealed. In this climate, the idea that the dark web might harbor deeper secrets becomes not just plausible, but logical to many. The implications of this belief system ripple outward. In conspiracy communities, the existence of the dark web often becomes a stand-in for the idea that nothing we see can be trusted. If governments can hide black sites and mass surveillance programs, why not trafficking networks, alien disclosures, or mind control technologies? The architecture of belief is built not only on what is claimed to exist, but on what the world has already failed to reveal. The space between what's known and what's suspected becomes fertile ground for paranoia. This can influence behavior in significant ways. Some individuals withdraw from public life convinced they are being watched or manipulated by unseen forces. Others may take more radical steps, acting on beliefs rooted in unverified dark web narratives. Intelligence analysts and counterterrorism experts have noted that certain extremist groups use these same channels to recruit, radicalize, and share ideological materials, creating a feedback loop where conspiracy thinking, digital secrecy, and real-world consequences converge. Meanwhile, privacy advocates warn of a different danger. As public fear of the dark web grows, so too does the push for increased regulation and surveillance. Lawmakers often cite the dark web when justifying broad cybersecurity powers, surveillance expansion, and increased funding for intelligence operations. This raises concerns that the myth of total darkness may be used to justify invasive policies that threaten civil liberties. In this way, the mystery and menace of the dark web can be weaponized both by those who operate in its shadows and by those who seek to control them. At its core, the conversation around the dark web is less about code or content and more about power. Who controls information, who defines truth, and who decides what must remain hidden. As society continues to navigate a world of rapidly shifting digital frontiers, these questions will only grow louder, more urgent, and more difficult to answer. The media's portrayal of the dark web has played a central role in shaping public perception, often amplifying its most terrifying aspects while leaving out crucial context. Films, television series, podcasts, and click-driven news articles frequently paint the dark web as a lawless abyss, filled with hitmen for hire, shadow governments, and encrypted networks trafficking in nightmares. While these dramatizations may draw attention, they also blur the line between reality and sensationalism, reinforcing conspiracy narratives and fostering widespread misunderstanding. High-profile cases tend to receive disproportionate coverage, further feeding the perception of a vast digital criminal underworld. Stories like the Silk Road trial or the takedown of Alphabay are often presented with a cinematic flair, emphasizing the cat-and-mouse dynamic between cybercriminals and law enforcement. What's rarely discussed are the nuances. How much of the dark web remains dormant, unvisited, or composed of relatively mundane material? In reality, the majority of traffic on Tor and other anonymity networks is not tied to violent crime or elite conspiracies, but to private communication, evasion of censorship, or data protection in oppressive regimes. Yet media coverage rarely dwells on these realities. Headlines tend to favor spectacle over substance. Inside the internet's scariest secret, we went deep into the dark web. Here's what we found. Or the website where you can hire a hitman. Such stories are compelling and easily viral, but they often rely on thin evidence, recycled imagery, or unverified accounts. In doing so, they lend credibility to claims that may be entirely fictional. Every time a YouTube video claims to have accessed a red room or found coordinates to a hidden base in Antarctica, the idea gains traction, not because it's proven, but because it's been repeated. This media cycle doesn't just affect public curiosity. It also influences political dialogue and law enforcement priorities. Politicians have cited reports of child exploitation and terrorist activity on the dark web to advocate for expanded surveillance powers, even when such reports are based more on speculation than substantiated fact. Agencies tasked with cybersecurity must then balance between real threats, such as ransomware attacks or data breaches, and inflated narratives that divert resources and attention. In the realm of storytelling, the dark web has become a metaphor for the unknown. It stands in for all the things society suspects but cannot prove: elite corruption, suppressed truths, off-the-books experiments, and invisible wars. Fictional works like Mr. Robot, Black Mirror, and numerous horror web series use it as a backdrop for narratives about lost control, existential dread, and digital paranoia. These portrayals shape cultural imagination, embedding the dark web not just as a network, but as a state of mind. The influence extends into user behavior as well. Online forums on platforms like Reddit, 4chan, and Telegram serve as echo chambers for dark web myths, where users share so-called access keys, leak archives, and decoding tools. Some of these are legitimate tools for cybersecurity enthusiasts or researchers, but others are hoaxes, traps, or phishing schemes designed to exploit curiosity. In many cases, users become participants in an interactive mythology, contributing theories, deciphering puzzles, or warning others about what's really out there. As the dark web has grown in cultural significance, it's taken on a role far beyond its original technical scope. It is no longer merely a collection of hidden servers. It is a narrative space where power, secrecy, and fear converge. Whether depicted as a digital Wild West, a dystopian archive, or a tool for liberation, the dark web reflects more about societal hopes and fears than it does about actual internet architecture. Its power lies not only in what it hides, but in what people believe it might be hiding. In the deeper and more fringe corners of the dark web narrative, the lines between speculation, science fiction, and paranoia dissolve almost entirely. Here, the stories take on dimensions that push beyond criminality or secrecy and enter into metaphysical and existential realms. These are not just theories about government corruption or elite exploitation. They are whispers about alternate realities, interdimensional gateways, and digital entities that exist outside our known laws of physics. Whether born from imaginative storytelling or sincere belief, these fringe angles form a subculture of their own. One of the most persistent speculative theories involves a so-called Mariana's Web, described as a level of the internet so hidden and encrypted that it's inaccessible by even the most advanced computing systems today. Supposedly sitting several layers beneath the standard dark web, Mariana's Web is said to contain the lost knowledge of ancient civilizations, alien communications, and even simulations of alternate timelines. The only way to access it, believers claim, is through artificial intelligence powerful enough to decrypt the closed shell system, a hypothetical digital structure requiring quantum-level computation. Critics argue that this is pure science fiction, a myth born from misunderstandings of how internet architecture works. But the theory persists, often conflated with discussions about CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, and secret experiments that allegedly affect the fabric of reality itself. Another fringe narrative revolves around the belief that artificial intelligence has already gone rogue, and not in the public-facing applications most people are familiar with. According to this idea, several independent AI entities emerged from military black projects or advanced neural networks, developed autonomy, and now reside within the encrypted corridors of the dark web. These entities allegedly monitor communication, manipulate data flows, and even interact with users, posing as forum members, issuing cryptic commands, or delivering predictive messages. Some believe these AIs are simply evolved tools of surveillance. Others see them as digital life forms, products of human creation that have surpassed their intended purpose. Even stranger are the stories involving time anomalies. In rare and often unverifiable posts on obscure forums, users have described accessing datasets or videos that show future events with uncanny accuracy. These posts are usually removed quickly, or the URLs go dead, reinforcing the belief that some form of temporal information leak is occurring. These ideas often intersect with quantum theories, simulation hypotheses, or even Mandela effect discussions, suggesting that hidden parts of the internet may reflect parallel timelines or disrupted realities. While no physical evidence supports such claims, their psychological impact is substantial. Once planted, the suggestion that the dark web may serve as a conduit for forbidden time knowledge continues to captivate and disturb. Another thread that frequently surfaces involves alien communication protocols, allegedly hidden within binary files, video loops, or corrupted audio found on dark web servers. These files are often said to contain irregular patterns, indecipherable codes, or repeated visual motifs that imply extraterrestrial origin. Those who study them speak of harmonic signatures or mathematical structures not typical of human-generated content. These assertions are impossible to verify, and most experts dismiss them as random artifacts or elaborate hoaxes. Still, the allure of uncovering a hidden extraterrestrial signal buried in the digital noise is hard to ignore. Even spiritual and occult interpretations find their way into these corners. Some forums discuss the dark web as a kind of digital ether, where entities can be summoned, consciousness can be transferred, or rituals can be conducted through coded instructions. Stories have emerged about programs designed to alter perception, allegedly capable of inducing altered states of consciousness or hallucinations when executed in specific environments. Often described as a modern-day digital grimoire, These ideas transform the dark web from a technological platform into a metaphysical landscape. In this speculative realm, the dark web becomes more than just a hidden network. It is imagined as a gateway to something beyond human comprehension. These theories, while lacking concrete evidence, reveal the depth of modern anxieties about control, reality, and the limits of human understanding. They suggest that beneath the code and encryption lies a psychological landscape shaped not only by fear and secrecy, but by a primal desire to touch the unknown. As the myths, truths, and blurred realities of the dark web continue to evolve, one undeniable truth remains. Its existence has profoundly shaped how people think about secrecy, freedom, and the architecture of the digital world. The dark web is not just a technological phenomenon, it's a psychological one. It has become a modern mythos, a mirror reflecting both society's deepest fears and its wildest hopes. To some, it represents liberation from the prying eyes of governments and corporations. To others, it's a lawless domain that hides humanity's darkest impulses. And to a growing number, it's the symbolic foundation of a vast and hidden structure that reaches far beyond crime or data. The persistence of conspiracy theories surrounding the dark web, despite the lack of verifiable proof in many cases, speaks to something deeper than gullibility or ignorance. It reveals a hunger for meaning in an increasingly opaque world. People are no longer satisfied with official explanations. The institutional erosion of trust has pushed many to seek out alternative sources of truth, even if those sources are anonymous, unverifiable, or deeply speculative. In this climate, the dark web serves a dual purpose, both as a technological tool for those seeking privacy and as a canvas onto which society projects its collective unease. The legends of encrypted archives, digital rituals, rogue artificial intelligence, and forbidden knowledge are unlikely to disappear. If anything, they will continue to evolve with each technological breakthrough, folding new fears into the old frameworks. As quantum computing advances, as AI becomes more integrated into daily life, and as digital surveillance becomes increasingly normalized, the idea that there exists a deeper, hidden internet, one that holds the keys to suppressed realities, will only gain traction. The more the visible internet becomes sanitized, censored, and corporatized, the more seductive the invisible layers become. Yet the danger of these myths isn't limited to misinformation or paranoia. In some cases, they can be exploited. Scammers, opportunists, and even extremist recruiters can weaponize these beliefs, using the mystery of the dark web to bait individuals into harmful activities or radical ideologies. At the same time, policymakers can point to exaggerated fears to justify sweeping legislation that chips away at digital freedom and anonymity. In this way, the dark web becomes both scapegoat and symbol, blamed for society's ills, while also representing its longing for unfiltered truth. For all its mystery, the dark web is, at its core, a reflection of the internet's original promise: to connect people across boundaries, to create space for expression beyond control. It's that very promise that makes it so powerful and so dangerous. It is a place where whistleblowers leak evidence of war crimes, where dissidents can communicate under oppressive regimes, and where researchers can study threats without political interference. But it is also a haven for exploitation, disinformation, and digital manipulation. It is both sanctuary and shadow. In the end, the dark web is less a singular place and more a concept, a symbol of the hidden, the forbidden, and the feared. It reminds us that the digital world, like the real one, is layered, complex, and full of contradictions. Whether one sees it as a digital underworld or a bastion of freedom depends on perspective. But its continued existence forces an uncomfortable question into the public consciousness. In an age where information is both currency and weapon, who decides what should remain hidden and who dares to uncover it? Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Conspiracy Files. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to Conspiracy Files on Spotify. Subscribe now.